Everyone thinks they know how it ends. The seductive queen, the viper, the snakebite, the tragic suicide in a golden chamber. It's an image so burned into our minds it's almost become myth. No, scratch that. It is myth, because the real story, it's messier, bloodier, and far more terrifying than anything your high school textbook ever dared to include. What if I told you her death may not have been a suicide at all? What if I told you there's no body, no tomb, and no physical proof Cleopatra even died in the way we're told? What if I told you her final days were a calculated game of espionage, betrayal, torture, and possibly murder? A woman so powerful she could make emperors kneel, reduced to a hunted animal inside her own palace. A lover's corpse paraded through the streets while she was locked away, stripped of power, stripped of allies. An empire crumbling with every breath she took, while Roman spies waited outside her chamber with orders to bring back her body, dead or alive. This isn't the story of a queen who gave up, it's the story of how one of the most powerful women in history disappeared, and may have taken her darkest secrets with her. They say she held an asp to her breast, but there's no bite mark. They say she took poison, but her servants died first. And they say she died for love, but what if she died for something far more dangerous? You're about to discover the final hours of Cleopatra, a journey of deception, torture, and imperial terror that makes Shakespeare look like a bedtime story. Let's begin in the blood-soaked corridors of her palace, where loyalty meant nothing and betrayal was currency. By the time Rome came knocking, Cleopatra was already trapped. The love of her life, Mark Antony, was dying, bleeding out on the cold marble floor of her mausoleum. Not a grand battlefield, not in a blaze of glory, but in agony after a failed suicide brought on by a lie. Antony had been told Cleopatra was dead, that she'd taken her own life, that it was over, but she wasn't. She was alive, watching him collapse, gasping for breath as blood poured from his stomach, watching the man she loved die for a mistake. She couldn't drag him inside. She couldn't let Roman soldiers see, so she had him hoisted with ropes through a window, his blood smeared across the walls. As she pulled him in, inch by inch, he died in her arms, not in battle, not as a hero, but as a broken man, betrayed by his own intelligence network, and perhaps by the queen herself. And that was just the beginning. Octavian, Rome's new rising tyrant, didn't want her dead. No, he wanted her humiliated, paraded through Rome in golden chains, a living trophy of his conquest. He wanted to show the world that he had crushed Egypt, that he had crushed her. But Cleopatra wasn't about to become anyone's trophy. Locked in her tomb, surrounded by only a handful of loyal servants, she planned her endgame. Or maybe, just maybe, her escape. This is where history goes dark. What we know next comes from Roman sources, biased, male-dominated, and often contradictory. Some say she took a poison hidden in a hairpin. Others say she arranged for a venomous snake to be smuggled in a basket of figs. But here's where it gets truly insane. There was no sign of a snake, no eyewitness account from someone inside the room. The only people who knew what happened, Cleopatra's handmaidens, died alongside her, and their deaths, they were first. Yes, first, which means someone else watched her die. Someone made sure it happened, or made sure it looked like it happened. You don't learn this in history class, but Octavian's forces had already broken into her mausoleum once. They'd taken her prisoner. She was under surveillance. The idea that she just slipped away and calmly orchestrated a suicide while under watch, highly improbable. And even stranger, Octavian never showed her body to the public. Not once. The body of Mark Antony was cremated, his ashes placed in Cleopatra's tomb. But Cleopatra herself disappeared. No funeral, no public display, no burial site ever found. Let that sink in. The most powerful queen in Egypt vanishes from the historical record the moment she's declared dead. And what does Octavian do next? He announces her death, declares himself the master of Egypt, but conveniently avoids any opportunity to display her corpse, avoids the chance to cement his victory with a final, undeniable symbol. Instead, he rushes to Rome, presenting only the narrative, not the evidence. Think about it. This was a man who craved theater, who understood spectacle, who paraded his enemies in chains. So why not Cleopatra? Why not the most scandalous woman in Roman propaganda? The she-devil? The seductress? The foreign queen who dared to challenge Rome? Unless there was no body to show. Unless Cleopatra outplayed him one final time. Now, let's rewind for a second, because Cleopatra wasn't just a queen. She was a political genius, fluent in at least 9 languages, a master of image and perception. And if anyone understood the power of disappearing, of controlling your own legend, it was her. Historians love to call her desperate, defeated, but the truth is, she may have orchestrated the greatest vanishing act in history. Some theories suggest she did take her own life, but not in despair, in defiance. That she smuggled in poison not to escape punishment, but to rob Octavian of his triumph. Others whisper that she never died at all, that a body double was prepared, that Cleopatra fled in disguise, that the woman who died in that tomb was not the last pharaoh of Egypt. Impossible? Not entirely. The Roman records are suspiciously vague. Ancient rumors persisted for decades, and more than one traveler years later claimed to have met a mysterious noblewoman from Egypt, cloaked in silence, surrounded by loyal guards, never naming herself. No proof, just whispers. But in history, whispers often hide truths too dangerous to be written. And what of her tomb, the supposed resting place of Cleopatra and Mark Antony, never found? Archaeologists have searched for centuries. Temples, pyramids, secret chambers beneath Alexandria, all have come up empty. How does a queen disappear so thoroughly? There's a possibility that Octavian destroyed all traces, that he had her remains hidden, cremated, or scattered to prevent her from becoming a martyr, an eternal symbol of Egyptian resistance. But even that plan backfired, because Cleopatra became more than a queen. She became a myth, a specter that haunted Rome's legacy. They killed her story, and in doing so, made it immortal. Now here's the most haunting part. The last recorded image of Cleopatra is not a painting, not a sculpture, but a coin, a small silver denarius, struck in the final year of her reign, her face carved in profile, strong, determined, no snakes, no tears, just a woman staring down the empire that was closing in on her. That coin was her message, not a plea, not a surrender, a symbol, a final act of propaganda from a queen who knew exactly how to write her own ending, even if it meant leaving the world guessing. And guess we do. For over 2,000 years, we've been trying to piece together those final hours, trying to separate fact from legend, poison from dagger, truth from theater. But maybe that's exactly what she wanted. Maybe the mystery is the point, because Cleopatra understood something most rulers never do, that death is not the end, not when your story lives on and hers refuses to die. So what do you think? Was Cleopatra a tragic lover, or the last master of political illusion? Did she die in defiance, or escape under a veil of myth? And does the truth matter when the story is this powerful? If you crave the dark, forgotten truths history tries to bury, hit subscribe, because there are more stories like this, more secrets, more lies, more rulers who vanished without a trace. And trust me, you haven't heard anything yet.